Okay, so with your shirt, guys, you want to make sure that you have your hair somewhat fixed or styled the similar way that you had when you shaded it, because your shirt's definitely going to, or your hair is definitely going to affect your shirt, because you might be getting some cast shadows off of it. I had to make some adjustments because I'm wearing a different shirt than what I initially had when I drew it, so you can kind of see my old drawing right there. I've got a V-neck on today. So I fixed that, and I've started to, and I've got stripes on my shirt, and I've started to add the stripes on there. So this is going to be very similar to if you've got a pattern or stripes or something, or even a logo, writing text, whatever. If you've got something other than a solid shirt on, you need to pay attention to how those graphics or the print or pattern or stripes on your shirt is getting affected by the form. And so this goes back to what we did on the watercolor project when we did that checkered fabric, and when we drew those stripes initially, we talked about how those stripes, change as they wrap around the form. So I'm going to kind of zoom in on this part. I kind of worked on the collar a little bit. So you can see I've got some of those stripes on there. And some of the things you need to consider is just how space does affect the size of an object and even spacing. So you can see here, I've just got the first few shaded in, but you can see how they're spaced a little bit farther apart here, but I made them get closer as they go back towards my back or around the neck. And then I'm just starting to go ahead and fill that in. I'm not going to be putting my shadows yet on top of my shirt until I have the whole pattern or logo worked out. So, and then I'll put the shadows just right on top of that. So all I'm doing is just going through and just filling in these stripes initially. I need to kind of thicken up these here in the front. Another thing I should have done and I didn't do is erase over my drawing here before I started. So I'm going to try to do that without losing too much. So there we go. So the other thing you got to consider too when you're shading your shirt, guys, is what's the overall value or tonal value of your shirt. So I would compare it to your hair. That'd be an easy thing to kind of work off of, since they are near each other, and also to the hair, just, it's a larger area. So, so if you look and compare your hair with your shirt, you got to act like you're a black and white photograph, basically, or you're putting a black and white filter over a photograph. How would that translate the colors in your hair and your shirt? So if you could imagine yourself as a black and white photograph, how would your shirt's value compare to your hair? So is it lighter or is it darker? Once you come up with that answer, that's going to give you a little bit of direction on what you need to do. So my hair is fairly dark, so I want to make sure that my shirt doesn't start looking as dark as my hair. So I want to keep those, two things contrasting each other, because it would also help my hair to stand out too. If my shirt gets too dark and my hair is dark, then I'm going to lose my hair and my shirt. So I don't want that to happen. So I've got just the start of those stripes there. And then the other thing, I would go ahead, and I've got stripes all over the shirt. I'm not going to work them all out just because that would take too much time for you guys to see. But the other thing too I'm going to draw in here is just any wrinkles and stuff like that that I see. And that might help me just get some direction where some of these shadows need to be. A lot of times you guys will see a lot of gathering happening around seams. So pay attention to some value changes happening there. So I'm just finding some of these big and major folds here. I'm going to draw those in and keep going. And then of course when I draw my stripes in, that's going to have a big effect on that. And I'm going to keep these lines that I'm drawing for my folds and stuff really, really light because I do not want to see these outlines when I'm finished. Getting a lot up here. So what I'll go ahead and do, I'll go ahead and start shading this collar just so you guys can see it. Ideally, I would get the whole drawing kind of finished before I start. And so I'm going to go ahead and kind of just work on these stripes. So I've got my 3B, and I'm just going to plug in some variation that I have here. Get that. Now remember, the reason why you see an edge is because there is a value change there, not because there's an outline there. So as you shade, you should see your outlines disappear, your original contour drawing. So when I start plugging in these values on top of my print, I'm just going right on top of my stripes because that shadow doesn't skip over the stripes, so it doesn't hop over, it's going to go over it. Of course, now that since I'm working on the darker side of my, or the lighter side of my portrait, I don't have any of the shading done on that side, so I don't have my neck to help me show this edge. So yes, I am losing some of my stripes as I go over this with the 4H pencil to start building up the form. But you'll notice a lot of times in those darker areas, you're losing details anyway, so that's natural. I'm going to go ahead and have to it's going to bug me. I'm going to go ahead and work on the shadow on my neck, even though this is the side I'm not shading. So again, as you work on the shirt, it's going to cause you to go back and probably work in other areas like your hair and your neck. That's completely normal. So there's just a start on my collar. I used a little bit of 6B on this, but most of this is just using my 4H and my 3B. And I would just keep going. But there's basically the beginning of a shirt.